Welcome back, my friends, to the penultimate episode of TFT Hyperroll with Artark. I mentioned in my Portal Roundup that I was going to do another video this week around Godwillow's Grove, and specifically with a build that I decided to try out after the patch notes were released. And one of the things in 13.14 is that they buffed both Rogue and Shadow Isle a little bit. And there is a natural synergy there since Viego is both Rogue and Shadow Isle. So it's something I've tried a few times and had success with a few times, so I wanted to take you through it just in case this is a build that you can use. So right before the augments came up, it gave me a Jace, and of course once I get a Jace, I'm thinking, well, do I want to go for Piltover? But you're gonna need one more. So I roll through these and grab healing orbs and start building up both the Shadow Isles and the Piltover, just in case I'm able to get Vi, because that's really what it relies on. But we'll cut to the chase. Vi didn't appear. And as I mentioned in the Portal video, if you get a shot at Piltover, try to go for it. It's pretty much an insta-win if you get it, but we now had to get back on track to Rogue Shadow Isle. And you're mainly building for three things. Maokai is a tank, and then Katarina and Gwen are going to be your main carries. There you are, Vi. Yeah, thanks for showing up late. And I'm currently using Godwillow's Grove to create Bastion so that our Maokai is just a little bit tankier at the beginning. And the reason I'm using two of them instead of one Poppy is they're both going to get shields from the Shadow Isle trait, so I'd rather have the shielded champions in. Since rogues were played very rarely, they increased the bleed damage and then made the transition to the backline a little bit smoother so it can't be interrupted, which is what was kind of holding the build up, as this was supposed to be the assassin trait, so to speak, for this set. We're going to go ahead and grab the chain vest here to make the Sunfire Cape on Maokai. They also buffed Shadow Isles a little bit, increasing their shield time, which is what made me think this could be a decent combination. And I'm holding on to Kled for now because the concept build already has two Slayers in it, so I'm definitely going to want to bring in additional Slayers for the additional damage and the little bit of Omnivamp that you get from that trait. It's time for the second set of augments, and Rogue Heart may look tempting, but there's already 4 rogues in the game, and each one of them really has a job in this build. So it's not what we're looking for. Social distancing is not the best for this either. You want your front line kind of set up, but Pandora's items gives us the ability to craft the perfect Katarina items as well as the perfect Gwen items, and this is pretty much why Twisted Fate was the most popular legend to take in the early part of the ranked season. The best possible Katarina situation, besides getting Civ HD to take over and control her, is going to be Ionic Spark, Jeweled Gauntlet, and then Hand of Justice. It'll give her a lot of crit, a little bit of healing, and she will be shredding the magic resist of everyone near her, meaning she's going to put out a lot of damage. General tip with Pandora's items: when you get pieces and parts that you need, put them on champions on the bench. See how Jin is holding a tier? That is in case we happen to get the Sparring Glove, then we have our Hand of Justice for Katarina, or the first Sparring Glove will go to her for Jeweled Gauntlet. But we have the ability to hold onto that tier this way. As far as positioning goes, I like to put rogues on either edge of the battlefield, and that's because they are going to jump to the backline that's within 4 hexes of their position. So this gives them the ability to hit both corners, which is what you're really looking for out of your rogues. If you just clump them in the middle, they might not get to those carries on the outside. Pandora's items finally managed to spit out a Sparring Glove, and I decided to go with healing over the damage at this point in the match. With the changes to Rogue, they are now bleeding the backline targets for 40% of their health, which is a pretty significant amount. Further, they're still doing a ton of damage. These were always high damage champions, it just wasn't a solid build with the way it was set up, since it could easily get interrupted. It's time for the final augment, and we get Prismatic. Endless Hordes I have not had good luck with, so that one is just gone. Some extra health from items is okay, but not necessarily perfect. We can re-roll that. Jeweled Lotus is very tempting since I'm counting on Cat to crit. Roll the dice gives you 2 Ornn items, but I'd rather end up taking the sure thing, and with a Jeweled Gauntlet, this is going to give Cat a 100% crit chance and a lot of damage to go along with it. And with the guaranteed crit chance both on Callista and Katarina, you can see the damage they are doing. With the healing orbs, that's also helping keep Cat healthy, and she's able to lead the damage charts. And remember how I said they buffed the Rift Herald in this latest patch, so much so that the jump from the Remora to the Rift Herald is much greater than the jump from the Rift Herald up to Baron. Well, let this serve as a little bit of what I'm talking about. Thought I had this one in the bag, but the Rift Herald is just strong enough to hold on and finish off my Cat. We managed to find a Gwen, and I made a change I should have made before, which is to bring Shen into the match and put Kled in Godwillow's Grove. Pick up the blue buff for Gwen, just an excellent item for her because she will be doing tons of damage with that ult over and over and over again. As far as here, Static Shiv is going to reduce everyone's magic resist. Even though Cat's already doing it with people she gets close to, this will impact other people who Callista is able to hit. And as you will see, the 4 Shadow Isle 4 Rogue is an interestingly good power spike. Having the additional Slayer off in Godwillow's Grove helps as well, as that leads to some increased power from Gwen and the other Slayers, but ultimately in this case, it's Callista who leads the damage charts. And I forced this build a few times after the patch went live, especially after the B patch and they had straightened everything out, and it seemed to work really well. Every single instance ended up in the top 4. Speaking of which, that's where we find ourselves, into the top 4. Now I am going to go ahead and bring in Senna no matter what, because the additional shielding is just too irresistible to pass up. We go ahead and give her a Rage Blade, and then give Gwen the Archangel Staff. Anytime you have Senna casting fast, it's going to help your team. And thanks to Gary, we were able to 2-star the Senna going into the next fight, which is going to help as we're going to get additional shielding, which is going to give us additional time to attack. You can see Gwen just cleaning house in the back line as we wait for that last item to turn into a needlessly large rod so I can make a Hextech Gunblade on her. In this case, we're using the Godwillow's Grove as just a holding place for an additional Slayer. I put Aatrox on there in the hopes that maybe it would bring Darkin in, but it just doesn't quite work that way, because I guess it would have given the trait to everyone, which would have been kind of the height of silly. But in this case, we don't have quite enough to get through the team. We need that last Gwen item for her to have all of her power. The other choice, of course, is to bring Cat up to gold 3 stars. And thank you, Gary. That should be the boost that we need. My strongest rogues go on the opposite ends. Then, because we're against a Void team, I'm going to move everyone back so we don't get impacted by that initial knock-up from the Rift Herald. That is the last thing we need, is to have anyone slowed down. So this way, it will pop, but it's not going to impact the team. So it jumps up, and then our team is able to do their thing. The only downside is the rogues aren't necessarily going to jump the backline, but I think the team is strong enough anyway. Ultimately, as you can see, they get in. Katarina is now 3 stars, so she is able to bounce over the board and win, but Gwen leads the damage charts. Hope you enjoyed this video. Grand finale of TFT Hyperroll coming soon, with a rant at the end. As always, have an absolutely awesome day.